Unit 731, Japan World War II. Unit 731 was Japan's secret biological warfare program during World War II. Prisoners, including civilians and soldiers, were infected with deadly pathogens like anthrax and plague to study disease progression. Victims were vivisected while alive, often with organs removed to study how diseases affected them. Frostbite experiments involved freezing limbs to test methods of rewarming. Unit 731's experiments killed tens of thousands, and the data was later traded with the U.S. in exchange for immunity, adding to its infamy. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study, USA 1932 to 1972. For 40 years, African American men in Alabama were studied to observe untreated syphilis. Researchers deliberately withheld treatment, even after penicillin became the standard cure. Participants were misled into believing they were receiving free healthcare, leading to preventable deaths, the infection of spouses, and congenital syphilis in children. The study's exposure in the 1970s prompted major reforms in medical ethics and the establishment of informed consent guidelines. The Stanford Prison Experiment, USA 1971, college students were randomly assigned roles as guards or prisoners in a simulated prison. The guards quickly turned sadistic, inflicting psychological abuse and humiliation on the prisoners, who exhibited severe stress, crying, and emotional breakdowns. Despite witnessing the suffering, psychologist Philip Zimbardo allowed the experiment to continue until an outside observer intervened. The study revealed how easily ordinary people can commit atrocities under the influence of authority. The Nazi experiments. Germany, World War II. Nazi doctors conducted barbaric experiments on prisoners in concentration camps, often without anesthesia. Twins were injected with diseases, exposed to chemicals, and sometimes surgically conjoined. Freezing experiments aimed to test survival methods for German soldiers. Many victims died or were left permanently disfigured. These experiments became key evidence in the Nuremberg trials, highlighting some of the darkest moments in human experimentation. Project MKUltra, USA 1953 to 1973. MKUltra was the CIA's covert mind control project during the Cold War. Participants, including hospital patients, prisoners, and even children, were secretly dosed with LSD, subjected to sleep deprivation, and brainwashed. Some individuals developed severe mental illnesses or died as a result. The project's records were largely destroyed in 1973, leaving many unanswered questions about its full scope and ethical violations. The Monster Study, USA 1939. In a speech therapy experiment on orphans, researchers divided children into two groups. One received encouragement, while the other faced relentless criticism, being labeled stutterers. The negatively treated children developed lifelong speech issues and psychological scars. Dubbed the Monster Study for its unethical methods, it highlighted the lasting harm caused by verbal abuse, especially on vulnerable populations. The Willowbrook Study, USA 1956 to 1970. At Willowbrook State School, researchers intentionally infected disabled children with hepatitis to study disease transmission and immunity. Parents often felt coerced into consenting, as participation was sometimes required for admission to the overcrowded institution. The study exploited vulnerable children, and its exposure revealed the appalling conditions at Willowbrook, sparking outrage and leading to reforms in medical ethics. Operation Midnight Climax, USA 1950s to 1960s. As part of MKUltra, CIA agents set up safe houses disguised as brothels and dosed unsuspecting individuals with LSD. They observed victims' reactions from behind one-way mirrors, often while intoxicated themselves. The agents had no scientific training, and the program had little oversight. Victims were left with severe psychological trauma, and the experiments raised serious ethical concerns about government abuse of power. The Aversion Project, South Africa 1970s to 1980s. During apartheid, military doctors forced gay soldiers into conversion therapy programs. Treatments included chemical castration, electric shock therapy, and sex reassignment surgeries performed without consent. Victims were subjected to horrific abuse, often leaving them physically and mentally scarred. The Aversion Project highlighted the cruel lengths to which societies went to enforce conformity during that era.
Subscribe for more interesting stuff. Tell us your experience in the comments.